Good morning, good afternoon, good day. Let's see. I forgot something here. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. I'm always forgetting this light to shine some light on one of these pages. There we go. That's a little bit lighter. Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. God bless everyone. This is the doc. So I know every other Thursday I normally do a brief leadership piece. What's up, Bruce? And DAVIT. Hey, how y'all doing? I can't pronounce it. I can't pronounce it. So every other Thursday, and I'm late. I'm supposed to be on here at 10 o'clock. It's now 12 o'clock, and we got to move through this quickly. Been a slightly busy morning. So for those that are coming on, I'll give a couple more seconds, and I want to talk something today on the difference between leadership and influence. The difference between leadership and influence. I'm not going to take too long. I just want to discuss a few things that we've learned. One of the things about growth is you have a tendency of changing your perspective on things, which is one of the things we've done as far as leadership and influence is concerned. So if anybody's following me on my personal Facebook page, I might not be able to answer you. Looks like I can answer you now. I got it set up to where as I can see both of them. This technology is getting crazy. Looks like I can answer you now. So, hey, Denny, God bless you. How you doing? So I got a couple of Facebook pages, the churches as well as mine. Hello, Pamela. Then I have my Instagram, Bruce, and someone else is on there. So we appreciate you guys. Again, real quick, I want to do I want to talk about the difference between leadership and influence. Leadership and influence. Now, back in the day, everybody followed one of Maxwell's books, and he made this particular statement that leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. Leadership itself is influence, and there's nothing more, nothing less. So my thought is today is that particular way of growing, is that particular way of being a leader, is it still valid? Does it still work for today? Right? So I know back in the 70s, and some of you weren't born back then, but back in the 70s, leadership was a noun. Leadership wasn't a verb. It was considered to be a noun and not a verb, right? So that's one of the other things that we deal with, the fact of what it was. Leadership back in the 70s was positional, right? And everybody thought because they had a position, people had to follow them. I used to watch people, especially when they got out of the military, and they had this high rank in the military, but when they got out, they didn't understand why people didn't follow them. Well, that's because they were taught that leadership is positional. Of course, now today we see something very different. They also taught in the 70s that leaders were born. What's up, brother Henry? How you be? We were also taught that leaders were born. Of course, in my era and the way I teach these 40 years of leadership development, I can train you, teach you, enhance you, and build you up in order to comprehend how to become a leader. But again, back in the 70s, they figured that in order to be a leader, you had to be born. Even though biblically we are all born with a form of leadership capabilities within us because of the God that we serve. Hey, Christy, how you do? Um, that being said, something else in the 70s that said that you became a leader when you had a position or everyone influences someone, so everyone has the potential to be the leader. So you were not a leader until you got that position. So people will work on their jobs, striving to be at the top, right? So then we get to the 80s, and when we get to the 80s, we understand that there's 5 levels to leadership. Better known as the 5 levels of influence. So we've gone through these genres of how leadership should be and how influence is. So my question today, or my thought just for today's little whatever I'm doing, class, lesson, or whatever you want to call it, my just thought process is there a difference between leadership and influence, right? That's the thought. So if we look at that again, do you need to gain influence to lead people? Again, this is the 80s. This is back in the 80s. This is a thought in the 80s. Do you need to gain influence in order to lead people? So here's what Gandhi said. Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi made this statement. Gandhi said that constant development is the law of life, and a man who always tries to maintain his dogmas in order to appear consistent drives himself into a false position. Now, you think then, what is a false position? Well, a false position is a place where I or you or we try to cling to our own views in order to view consistent, but we realize we have outgrown those views and they no longer represent who we are or what we represent. Again, my question today was, is there a difference between leadership and influence? And if not, is this still true? Is leadership influence? Is this true for us today? Now, according to what Gandhi says, when we come out of the 80s, according to what Gandhi says, is the fact that constant development is the law of life, and a man who always tries to maintain his dogmas or her dogmas in order to appear consistent drives himself into a false position. What is the meaning of a false position? A false position is a place where I, you, or we try to cling to our own views in order to view consistent. But we realize we've outgrown those views and they no longer represent who we are or what we represent. So there's some views in life that I have had as a child, or there were some things in life or views that I've had growing up, even in ministry or teaching and being developed in leadership that no longer function, right? Why? Because I've grown, right? And it's kind of sad if you have not grown. I've always said that most of all, for me, leaders are readers. If you don't read, you can't lead. That's simple as that, right? Leaders are readers, and most leaders don't read, and I will burn them every time because they have no comprehension of life. They're still stuck in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. In order to lead, you must read. And then what happens is we begin to grow. And there's some things that we thought about, or there's some things that we thought we believed because of that achievement. We don't understand that it's now skipped us. The people are now progressing and we haven't progressed. And that's one of the problems that we have. People don't progress, they still stuck. Kind of like I'm stuck on band-aids and band-aids stuck on me. They just stay stuck and they got to learn how to go. So is there a difference between leading people and influencing people? So let's look at some categories here, some counterbalances, if you will. Leading is about others. So when we lead, it's about others, right? But when we influence, it's about me. Think about that. When we lead, it's about others, but when we influence, it's about me. It's about us, right? When we lead, we must have values in order to lead. But when you influence people, values are not required, right? I think leadership and influence are one and the same, like peanut butter and jelly, but have to keep up with the generations and change. True concept, Pamela. I give you a plus on that one. So again, when you're leading, you must have values, but when you're influencing, values are not required. Think about it. Now, leading is long term, right? That's something that we do long term, right? But when we look at influence, influence is short term. Think about it, because somebody can influence you just right. So influence is short term, but leading is long term. Leading, you're held accountable, but influence, there's no accountability required, right? Think about it now. Or when you're leading, you have to be conscious of what you're doing. When you're influencing, you're unconscious. I mean, again, I've influenced people that I've been unconscious of the fact that I was influencing them. It's happened so many times in my life. I don't pay it any attention. And then somebody will come back a month or 2 weeks, a day or whatever later, say, you know, Doc, I did that because I saw you, I heard you, I watched you, and I have no idea that I'm influencing them, right? So I'm not conscious of it. I'm unconscious of the fact that I'm influencing. Leading is consistent, right? But influence is inconsistent. It's just sporadic. Leading is what we call transformative. Now, what is transformative? Transformative is causing a marked change in a person or a situation. So that's causing a change, a marked change in that person. But now, when we're influencing people, we're not transformative. We're transactional. Transactional means we're relating to an exchange or an interaction between people. So transactional is something we're exchanging values or something, or we're exchanging ideas or something between one another. So it's transactional. So we either leading is transformative, influence is transactional. Now, here's the catch, right? I'm gonna throw this at you real quick. Sorry, my eyes itching. Check it out. If you live long enough, some of the things you thought were true will not be. Now, I started that in my statement earlier as we started sharing. So there's some things that we were processed through coming up to this point. And then somewhere along the line, we comprehended some greater knowledge, right? Which is why I started off asking the question: Is there a difference between leadership and influence? One of my children said, "Look, she thinks that it goes together like peanut butter and jelly." Well, of course, that's an A plus, right? And that's why we're sharing this, because the catch is we're constantly growing. At least we should be constantly growing. Look, here's what separates leaders and influence. Leadership is not always good influence, because it is possible to have a good influencer and that person not be a leader. And it's also possible to have a good leader that has pitiful, poor influence, right? Or to have a leader, rather, that has poor influence, right? They're just leading because of a position. And then there's a possible of having somebody who influences well, but they're not in a leadership position. I've taught for years the 360-degree leader. That's the person that can lead up, down, and across. And that's normally the secretary or somebody like that. Somebody that has no position at all, but they have influence, right? And we grow to comprehend that. There's so many people around us, especially in church, there's so many people around us that are not behind the pulpit, but yet they have influence. You see what I'm saying? And so what separates leaders from influence? Well, good leaders influence other people, or good influencers influence other people. See, it's kind of like I don't want to say it's an oxymoron, but we can. Denny says that the comment of peanut butter and jelly is from my influence. That's my child, Denny. So check it out. Look, good leaders influence other people. Good influencers influence other people. As she said, it's interchangeable. Look, let's look at the fact of what a good influencer or what a good leader do, how they influence. First of all, they have to be comfortable with themselves, right? You must know yourself to grow yourself. You have to be very comfortable with yourself. Now, anybody that knows me know I'm very comfortable with me, right? I'm comfortable. I love me, right? I'm not trying to change me. I'm going to always be me. And if you want to be a good influencer, right, you have to be comfortable with yourself, right? And being comfortable with yourself, you have to understand that you can't give what you do not have. You know, a lot of times people try to answer questions they don't have answers to. Well, you can't give what you do not have. So you have to know who you are, and you have to be comfortable with who you are. See, I'm comfortable with me. Now, there's some people, right? Let me put it this way. If you need people, then you can't lead people. In other words, if you need people to validate you, then you can't lead nobody, right? It's kind of like let's throw social media in there. If you think you're somebody because you get a whole bunch of likes, because that's only going to happen periodically. That's not a threshold, because that's not always the real you that we see. So if you just need a whole bunch of likes to say that you're somebody, then you can't be a good influencer, right? A good influencer knows who they are, they're comfortable with who they are, and they don't need any validation, right? I never forget, I met a preacher like 25 years ago, and they introduced me as Apostle Wright. And he said, "Man, I like you." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Because you don't need no validation." I said, "I sure don't." He said, "You don't need nobody to prove who you are." I said, "I sure don't." Right? Because once you know who you are, you don't need no validation. You got that validation. You're an influencer at that point because you know you, right? And people gravitate to people that know them, right? If they're strong, that's what they gravitate to. So again, number two is the fact that in order to be an influencer, if you will, or a leader that influences, you have to believe in others. So the question would be, are people really coming to you because you believe in them? Are people coming to you because you value them, right? Like sometimes people need a lot of people around them to prove who they are. I've always believed in this, and I've always stated this. Whenever you go into a room of people and you want to find out who the leader is, you'll find the one who's not talking, right? Because if a leader knows who he is, unless somebody's asking him a question, he's not really saying much. He's really standing to the side with just a couple of people that he knows real close. But when you see that crowd and you sit and listen to him, it's like, yeah, you boasting. You can't do half of that. You gotta always be conscious of that. So, and again, here's what I like about influencers. People will forget what you say, right? People will even forget what you did for them, but people will never forget how you make them feel. They're never going to do that. That's kind of like people always say, well, I love you, I care for you, but you're not showing me. So I don't know whether you do or not, right? People will never forget how you make them feel. It's like this here. It's one thing to go into a room and say, here I am, right? But it's another thing to go into the room and say, oh, there you are, right? Because I'm excited to be in the room because you're there. Now, that's not fictitious. That's my life. I'm excited to be around people. And there's certain people I'm really excited about being around, and I'm glad that they're there, right? They make my day. See, I'm not there to make their day. They make my day, right? And and they know me like that. It's not just because I want to influence them. They are actually influencing me. So it's kind of like, in order to be a good influencer, you have to constantly add value to others, right? At least the ones that want to accept it, because everybody don't want to accept it. You got to walk away from them. But to be a good influence, you have to always add value to others, and make sure that when you add value to them, this is not what we would call an event. This is genuine. You really want to add value to the people that you're dealing with. It's special. Now we see how this peanut butter and jelly is working, right? Because you can do this and not be a leader, right? It's all together. Because you're not doing it to see what you're going to get in return. Most people want to see what they're going to get from you. If they give something to you, they want something back. It's great to be a person who can give and don't expect back in return, right? It's great to be a person that can pour and not being concerned whether that person you're pouring into can pour back into you. Right, right, right. You're not doing this to get something back. You're doing this because you genuinely love who you are and what you carry. That's what it's about. So, you literally add values to others because they're valuable. Now, I know anybody who's connected to me in any shape, form, or fashion is valuable. I know that God does not connect me with anybody unless there's some value there. And a lot of times it's hidden. And I have to pull that value out because I genuinely value people, right? That's that peanut butter and jelly. So, am I a leader or am I a leader or am I an influencer? Boy, that get your tongue tied when your mouth dry. At which one, right? But they're interchangeable, as Pamela said. It's like peanut butter and jelly. They all go together if you want to be successful and great. Now, what is success? Success is not how many people follow you. Success is to make sure that you're better than what you was last month. That's your personal success. So here's what I want to say, and I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you guys. I pray it's been a blessing. I pray you share with somebody. Now we know, is there really a difference between leadership and influence? So here's how we look at it, right? Leading is influencing people, but influencing people is not leading them. I like that myself, right? Because I wrote it down. Leading is influencing people, but influencing people is not leading them. I like that. Look, I appreciate you guys for allowing me to come on late, but we're here. Please share it. Look, check. I appreciate you. Be safe and be blessed. This is the Doc, and we'll holler at you in the funny papers. Peace.